ReviewTyme is the home for all things theme parks, from reviews to history to travel advice and more. We're based in Australia, not really known for its theme parks, so we travel the world to bring you the best in themed entertainment. We're all unique in what we enjoy, from thrill seekers to entertainment lovers, families to those going solo. So we believe that our reviews should reflect the individuality of our community. That's why we don't just give a single score to a park, but structure our reviews in such a way that you're able to focus on what's important to you. We review the past to explore the intricate world of theme park history, provide helpful insight into making the most of your trips, and focus on making sure that you're ready for the adventures of a lifetime. Because when you're park ticket in hand and ready to walk through those gates, make the most of it with us. This is ReviewTyme.
So my name is Dominic. I am the creative director of ReviewTyme, and I am joined here by Luke. Luke, if you'd like to quickly introduce yourself.
Hello again, guys. My name's Luke. I'm the content director here at ReviewTyme.
So we're just now adjusting to the new YouTube live format. It's taken us a little bit, but we have gotten there, thankfully. As you can see, we've got the nice, beautiful graphics, and it's hopefully going to be a smooth ride from here on out. So we're doing a Q&A today. We fielded a bunch of questions over the last couple of weeks, and we've also already recorded this twice, but we felt that it would be better to do it in a live format, which is why there's going to be a little bit of wibbly wobblies to work out.
Some pre-recorded questions, but some pre-asked questions. But if you do have any, pop them in the comments and we'll answer them for you live as well.
Yeah, we can see everything in the chat. We can see everything going on. So feel free to ask your questions, but if anyone's got pretty much nothing to start off with, we've got some here to go. So Luke, did you want to start the first question for the Q&A?
Yep. First one here comes in from Lyndon Superville. Congrats to one of my favorite channels. Thank you, Lyndon. But the question is, how do we do our research to keep coming up with fresh content?
Did you want to start that one off?
Yeah, so for me, research is essentially just reading a lot. I've got a ton of Disney Parks books behind me. I pretty much daily read a ton of different vlogs, different blogs, stuff like that. So essentially, I just do a lot of reading. And I'm sure you've noticed some of my videos, I'll take what starts to me, I'll see like a single piece of concept art online, and I'll be like, that looks interesting. And I'll essentially go down the rabbit hole and keep researching, which is something I've got for next week's video coming up. A single piece of concept art interested me. I'm at the stage down the rabbit hole now where I've actually got in touch with the first person who leaked the concept art online. And we're in discussions about possibly getting some never before seen pieces of concept art. So keep your eyes out for that one next week. How about you?
Yeah, so the way I make videos, this is the way I've made videos since I first started on YouTube way back. People probably, not many people would know that I had a channel before this called Captain Laserguns. They do not overlap, ReviewTyme and Captain Laserguns. One was gaming videos, this one was essentially theme parks, so not really much overlap there. So I would be surprised if people knew that I did that before this. But I've always gone with that idea of, I always want to make content for myself. So I usually start off with a question or something that I find in the park or something that I find interesting, and I just want to elaborate on it. Essentially, I want to find out what is interesting for me and then provide that to the viewer. So I'll just go through things like with the EMVs and the trackless ride vehicles and things like that. I'll often just go, that's cool. How does that work? Or what is Golden Oaks? What is Club 33? Those sort of things. Just elaborating.
I think your upcoming video is another version of that as well. So it's
a
good way to show what we're talking about if you watch the next 2 weeks of content.
You're there in deep research land. I'm just there like, ooh, I want to know the answer to this question. Which I found if you can put it into one question, then you're always going to be pretty much well off. So
makes a really good title essentially, and you go from there.
What's happening in the chat at the moment? It seems to be going off.
There's some quick fire questions we can get to in the chat. Lindsay Yale Entertainment, hello to you. big fan of the channel. I see you commenting a lot, so thanks for all of your support. Have you met Hudson, the Thrills United rep for Australia?
Thrills
We
United?
have.
No.
Yeah, no. But if you'd like to reach out,
yeah,
sure we'd be more
I'm
happy
always
to get in
happy to
touch.
meet Hudson.
Nathan Evans, this is a hard one. Which Queensland theme park is your favorite? Out of SeaWorld, Dreamworld, Wet n Wild, Movie World, and Aussie World. We can knock one out. I haven't been to Aussie World. I don't think you have.
Yeah, I haven't been to Aussie World. Look, I'll always go with this, and this will probably annoy a few people, but I always feel if you have to choose from one, like if you can only go to the Gold Coast for one day and do one theme park, I'll usually always say Dreamworld. Not necessarily because it's got the best rides, but because as a package it's got the most. So you've got more family experiences, you've got the corroboree area, you've got all those sort of things. That's my reasoning for choosing Dreamworld. However, if you have consecutive days, I will always say put Movie World in there because it is the best theme park, if that makes sense. Like in terms of offerings.
So Movie World has the best rides, and if you are truly just a thrill seeker wanting the big thrills, Movie World's obviously the correct choice. But if you are wanting that nice, fully rounded park, and you do only have one day, the joy about the Gold Coast is you can pretty much go up there for a week and do everything it has to offer. But if you only have one day, Dreamworld.
Yeah. Love that.
Oh, thank you.
Throwing
Amanda,
shade at
for the
Whitewater
super chat
World
there.
doesn't essentially exist. Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Amanda. I didn't even know that was turned on.
Tiffany says good morning. Good morning to you, Tiff.
Good morning.
One of the people who was at our meetup, so thanks for coming along. Our Movie World meetup, so I don't know what that says about our preference, but we did do our Australian meetup at Movie World.
Look, we were originally wanting to do Dreamworld, but we invoked the wrath of God. As with everything this year, as review time progresses, we anger more and more things. So first we started regional and we went to the Gold Coast literally for a weekend. We flew out on a Friday and we were flying back on the Sunday night. Mm-hmm. And they had a 1 in 100 year storm that flooded all the parks. Instead of going to Dreamworld that day, where we had lots of things lined up with Dreamworld management and their creative team, we actually ended up going to a time zone arcade because that's all that was open.
Pretty much a full day. Of our 2 days in the Gold Coast, we went to, it was the world's largest time zone, but there's no video on it.
Yeah. Quickly, Garrett asks a question. You guys went to Sega theme park when you were younger. I assume you mean Sega World in Sydney.
Sega World, yeah.
Tell us about the silly stuff you couldn't fit in the video. That's my favorite one you've done so far. Good question. I don't know if I ever went there. I was very young. The thing I do remember about Sega World, though, is that floating around our house for a very long time was... That's a sick mug, by the way. Floating around our house was a Sega World token, like one that you would get from the coin pushers.
Oh, yeah.
And that's pretty much all I remember. I think my brother used to go there all the time. And if I wanted more information, I'd probably ask him because we did live in Sydney when I was younger. So that's why I'm very familiar with Wonderland and all of that. But for Sega World, all I remember is that token and driving past it. And there was the Maccas underneath it and the big Sega World sign.
I have some... So I do remember going to the park. Whilst I don't necessarily remember a ton about it, I have this weird memory of this. And I think it's either a Questacon or somewhere now where they just have the same one. There was this like guillotine there, like this fake guillotine. It would like lift up this massive blade and it would drop and blow some air or something on your head. I just remember being petrified of that as a kid, and I refused to stick my head in there because apparently I thought they're really going to chop a guest's head off in a theme park. I would not stick my head.
To be fair, speaking of Questacon,
chase and stuff like that,
there is some stuff from there that, you know, when you think back on it, it is fairly edgy. Questacon is like a indoor science theme park in Canberra. It's probably something that would be relevant for a video one day, but at this point, everything's closed, so nothing's relevant for a video. We had another question in here from Thrill History.
That's one of those like drop. I remember Questacon had that like just hang like 15 meters in the air and drop yourself, and you'll slide down if you're lucky. Moving on. Will this be available to watch later? Yes, we'll pop up the VOD sometime later today.
I'll try and clip out
from
the opening audio problems.
Yeah.
Look, we tested this all, but it's very early in the morning for us. So we literally woke up like an hour ago. I just went down the street and got a takeaway coffee. So we thought we were super
awake.
prepared.
That's a big thing for a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Penny Stringer is hopefully heading to Japan in May of next year. Tokyo, Disney Sea, Legoland, Universal. We haven't done Legoland yet, so let us know how it is.
It's down the road from Nagashima Spa-Land, isn't it?
I think it's maybe like an hour away, but that's pretty close compared to if you look at.
I thought like if you just followed the highway, it would eventually.
Oh, there's like a bridge
there.
Or something. I think. Yeah,
like a really big bridge.
They've had to reschedule from April, which is we had a April Japan trip planned as well. That we've had to cancel sadly. So are we planning to head back to Japan next year? So we have a lot floating around in our heads, ideas for next year that obviously all completely depends on what's going on in the world. So we have told people, and this one's been on, we haven't had to delay it, but we're hoping to do Europe, and that's been one we've kind of been promising in comments, and if anyone's asked for a while. So fingers crossed. We also, who knows, we wanted to do the 50th for Walt Disney World and fully cover anything that we haven't in Orlando. Who knows? We've got a lot of time off saved from this year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as soon as the borders reopen in Australia, you'll see us on a plane within a month knowing us, and we'll be in a theme park within a month and a day. So I don't know if Japan's going to be on that. We plan to go to Japan because we were going to be there for the opening day of Beauty and the Beast, the new trackless dark ride attraction. Just because it interested me, the idea of being there at the busiest, craziest Disney resort in the world for the opening day of an attraction in a resort that's happy to wait like 4 hours for a 20-year-old attraction. This would have been interesting, even if we didn't get a ton done.
Yeah, I think the good thing is ReviewTyme's in a position at the moment where with everything held off, we haven't actually lost any money from cancelling any trips. So we're in a good position at the moment to just sort of hold out and essentially go into content hibernation and wait it all out. And the moment it becomes safe, so when it is safe for us to travel, and not just in going there, but in coming back, because we want to make sure that we're not, jeopardizing the safety of our friends and family. We will be going overseas and we will be traveling. Just the circumstances of when that will happen, whether there's a vaccine or the world just adjusts to it, we really don't know. So it's so hard to plan. We can say, we're going here in April next year and we're going to Walt Disney World for the 50th. Whether we can actually go is something else.
Yeah.
But
so just to tell you guys, this year we had planned April, we had planned to go to Japan. Originally we had planned to go to Shanghai. So we've actually cancelled trips for this year to Shanghai, Japan, Walt Disney World, and Dubai. So there's a look at what
and California
to the channel. And California. So there's a look at what could have come to the channel this year, and some of that may come when we can get back to it. But hopefully you've been enjoying the content that isn't reviews at the moment. We've been putting a little bit of extra time and effort seeing into putting the polls out, seeing what people ask for, and been making that. It seems to be doing well. So hopefully we can eventually get back overseas, but until then, we'll still be here.
Look, we'll be legitimately serious. When we go overseas, making content is so much easier. So when we found out that this year we pretty much wouldn't be able to travel, it was essentially like the world telling us, no, you have to work harder. Because we need, like in history videos and all of that, we need to sit down and we need to research. We need to make sure that the script is up to par, all those things. With our overseas videos, the research is essentially done before we go. We get the research as we're experiencing the attractions and how we get there and all of that, and that will influence the reviews. And reviews for us, because we critically think of everything whilst we're in the parks, are quite simple to get out, and we'll back and forth those reviews to make sure that they're fair and cohesive. But other than that, everything else is quite difficult, especially when not people know, we still work 9 till 5 jobs outside of ReviewTyme. This isn't our full-time careers. So we are trying to fit ReviewTyme into our work lifestyle, which is constantly changing, and ReviewTyme, which is constantly changing. So it makes it a little bit interesting, but we get there. Just quickly before we go too far, we had a question from Thrill History, which I liked. So seriously, what is your ultimate theme park attraction you could put into any theme park in Australia? So if you could just take anything and put it into Australia, which is a very interesting question. I think a lot of the Australian community have always wanted a B&M in an Australian park. Whether it's possible, whether, like, I've spoken to some people in theme parks recently who have said at this time, Australia is probably in the best position to get a B&M, and also the world's not buying, so demand's pretty low. Can you quickly say something, Luke? I'm not sure if you've disappeared.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, you're still there.
Yeah.
You just went quiet. But the ultimate attraction, it depends on whether it's for me personally or whether it's for the Australian community. I honestly reckon a flying coaster would do really well in Australia. Look, I don't like flying coasters, but I feel that the appeal is there. Like, they are externally sort of very attractive looking, if that makes sense.
I think something like lines a dive coaster. Like, if you were to get a B&M, I don't feel like a B&M Hyper is going to do much. Like, what they got sort of DC rivals for is you're going to have to pay way more for a B&M Hyper, and it may not be seen as better in the eyes of most people. Where if you were to pop, say Dreamworld, they took out Cyclone, Hot Wheels Sidewinder, whatever it's called this week, and in the place there, they put a B&M Dive. That is just going to be the beacon for that park. Like, it's going to drag people in because from the highway, what are you seeing? People dangling over the edge of a massive drop. Especially, like, that park's beacon has always been the Tower of Terror or the Giant Drop. Taking one of those out, the beacon at the front now is the Cyclone, which is going to look nice now it's repainted, but it's still like over 20-year-old Arrow custom looper
on stilts. If
you've ridden Arrow custom loopers, says a lot about probably how it's running 20 years later.
Look, if you need your neck or back adjusted, Arrow, they're there for you. Why do you need...
All right, let's do some quick fire ones just to catch up a little bit. So, what theme parks, from Turtleburger 26, what theme parks would you like to do in the future? I think we sort of the stuff that we did have planned was it. So Europe, we really want to do Europa Park. A lot of people have said, like, it could be the park to knock Tokyo Disney Sea off its mantle of first place. Europe, there's a ton we obviously want to do in Europe. We want to finish the Disney parks, so Shanghai, both the Paris parks, we need to do reviews of those. Probably by the time we get back, we'll also re-review Hong Kong. It's going through massive changes at the moment.
Efteling as well. I'd really like to do Efteling and Phantasialand in Germany, I believe both. No, Efteling's up north in Deutschland.
Netherlands, I think.
Yeah, Netherlands. And as you said, Shanghai. I've been to all of the Disney parks except for Shanghai, so it'd be nice to compare what it looks like and how sort of the experience is, because I've heard that Shanghai does sort of feel like they've taken the Disney idea and just gone, put it over there. So it's interesting to see how it adapts. Fennyland and Efteling are amazing. I've never considered calling it Fennyland, but there you go.
Look out for that in our review eventually. Fannyland is Europe's best theme park.
What other quick-fire questions can you send my way?
So this one, Charlie says, love the first podcast, we'll be doing any other. The format right now would be a great addition. So we did have plans to do the podcast. We're still behind the scenes talking about what that may look like. The idea was that we would launch the podcast around April, because once we got to April, the rest of the year kind of fell into line with easier content in the way that half the content is made in the park and the other half is made at home.
Yeah.
So essentially the home effort is only half of what it would be for something like a history, something like that. And in that free time, we would be able to make the podcast. We still want to make it. We just want to make it in such a way that we know we can do it well. It can be consistent. We were toying around with maybe a live podcast that gets edited down, something like that. So if that's something you'd like to see, let us know in the comments. Something similar to this, we'd have a podcast, edit it down, then pop it up on Spotify, all those sort of things. We're playing with ideas, so thank you for sticking with us. We agree it would be a good time for it. I'm listening to a ton of Disney Dish and all of those sort of podcasts at the moment. So
yeah, it's, as I've always said, it needs to be fair on the viewers and fair on us. I don't want to release anything that we can't commit to, because then it's not fair for you guys to invest in content that we can't produce. Especially if we had, 3 podcasts come out, people are like, yes, podcast. And then we had a week where we're like, whoops, sorry guys, we got busy. So we're just trying to figure out the right format, whether it even becomes something like this, a live stream where we can then rip the audio and put it online, but people can join in for the live experience. We're still toying with that. So it will probably come to fruition over the next couple of months. But just, we need to figure it out. And once we do, we'll definitely be letting everyone know. Yeah.
Thanks. All right. Just some quick shout outs. Penny can't wait to go to Nintendo World. It wasn't in our Japan plans, but depending how good it is when it's released, because I don't think we're going to be able, I really want to do Nintendo, and I don't think I can wait another, 4 or 5 years until it opens in, Epic Universe. Who knows if what's going on there.
Did you see that it was, I think, JAL, the airline?
The airline.
They were going to do a direct flight from Orlando to Japan. It was literally only going to be one that would go there for a weekend and then come back. And it was going to be stupidly expensive, but the idea was that all of the really big theme park enthusiasts in Orlando could go over and see it.
You don't have to wait.
So, actually, this is a good, quick one right here that I quickly want to touch on. The way you voice the videos is quite unique. It's somewhat theatrical. What was the inspiration for this style?
I think this is a good tie into a question that somebody asked online. Oh, Lindsay as well, who's with us. He asked in the pre-questions online, how did we meet? Which I think these two tie together quite nicely.
Yeah, so Luke and I actually met through theatre. Surprise. So we were doing a production of Phantom of the Opera in our hometown, and that's where we met. At that point, we really didn't know each other. We were just sort of in there, but we were both going to a convention in Melbourne called PAX. And we met down there and we got talking, and we realised that we had a lot in common regarding sort of what we had done in the past and theme parks. Then it was one day where I needed somewhere to stay afterwards because I lived out of town and you lived quite close, and you had a car and I didn't. And I was like, hey man, can I stay at yours? And you're like, cool. And then we were just hanging out and you're like, look at all this cool theme park stuff. And I was like, so that's pretty much how we sort of got into it. That's the short version of the 15-minute version I've spoken about before that got really boring.
I think the other thing with our voiceovers being theatrical is a lot of my voice, it's not necessarily our exact talking style, especially if we're talking to other Australians. And the other thing, mine kind of developed when I worked at Disney. I kind of have this, I guess, a theatrical Australian accent, which is an accent that can be understood by more people. Because when I worked at Magic Kingdom, I would have so many guests. They'd come up to ask a question for me. They'd be looking me in the eyes. And as I'd start to talk, you could just see their eyes slowly shift down to my name tag. And you're like, So over that time, I developed an accent. So I think for me, that's kind of it as well. Because I know if I was just to talk in my everyday normal voice, half of the viewers would be like, what did he say at 5 minutes 37?
Excuse me, where is Space Mountain? Still. Oh, g'day, Cobber!
Come on down, it's right over there.
I think
that's a good question. Thanks,
for my voice, If you're watching the Captain Lasergun's videos, I've always gone with it. YouTubers will do this naturally, even if they admit it or not, that they will put on a persona when making a videos. It just makes it so much easier when you're getting criticism, because then you can put that on the persona that you're putting forward to people instead of taking it personally on yourself. It's like a shield. But in Captain Laserguns, I had a really exaggerated voice and I was always sort of talking like this. And then ReviewTyme sort of toned it back. But I've gotten to a point where you can sort of, it's a mixture of the really exaggerated voice, but it's also a bit calmer and easy to hear. So that's where that voice came from.
Yeah.
So it is kind of
this,
my voice, but not at the same time.
Even kind of what we're talking, like how we're talking now is like a midway between our ReviewTyme voices and just our normal voices.
Well,
so this is closer to normal.
The problem I always had is that when I'm talking normally, I have a lot of vocal pops, and there's quite a bit of vocal fry in there as well. There's like a So when I'm talking with my smooth voice, it's a lot easier to get those things out of the way. So that's that.
Yeah, great question for that. Let me quickly go through. Here's one from Lachlan. I think there's going to be some contention in this one. What is your favorite song/audio for a theme park?
There's a lot.
Yeah, it's almost too bit like.
I'm going to go to the top three that I'll always sort of go back to. And one that sort of slowly drifted out as time has gone on. So there's lots of fluff on my microphone. You can just see it right there. But the one I always go back to, I love Illuminations. That was a spectacular soundtrack.
Epcot in general is going to be a right answer, I feel. Any Epcot is probably the right answer to this question.
But the other one that always gets me bopping is Happiness is Here, because it is just so over the top. Even the fireworks version where it's like, happiness is here, doom, 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 joy out of that.
Any Tokyo celebration theme song for like their 5th, 10th, 15th for either park is going to be a bopper, for sure, guaranteed.
The other one is Happily Ever After. I've sort of drifted away from the iTunes version, but I still love the in-park soundtrack.
I think, is it?
Yeah, it's just the bit where it's like, reach out and find your happily ever after. It's like 3 minutes. And Rob points out Mystic Manor as well. That's a bop. The only reason that I don't always go back to it is because there's no good recorded version.
Yeah, there's no source version. There seems to be source audio for pretty much anything in theme parks. But yeah, I agree. At the moment, it's not technically Disney, I guess, but if I've got something where I'm like, I've got 30 minutes, I'll often listen to Big Band Beat from Tokyo Disney Sea. It's fun to sing along to. It's fun to... what was I... Yesterday I was doing some cooking. What was in my rotation? There was some Epcot old style, like opening Epcot music, like Universe of Energy, that sort of stuff. Sunny Eclipse got a ring in there. But I agree. Like Epcot and any of the celebration songs from Tokyo. Those are probably your best, like, just to listen to. And then for background audio, rides like Soar and stuff like that have to be. Mystic Manor. Those are my top. Thanks, Lachlan.
Any others in the questions, or should we move on to some more of the pre-written ones?
There's a couple here. So Rob wants to know why we think Anaheim's Tomorrowland is better than Orlando's, which is probably going to start some debate. So I'll answer quickly. I don't think any Tomorrowland that I've been to is good. It's like in the way that it's good as a Tomorrowland. Yeah, most Tomorrowlands around the world have good rides, but don't necessarily be good because they're Tomorrowland. This is a look into the tomorrow, into the future.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Paris, but I'm guessing they're Discoveryland and even kind of Port Discovery at Tokyo Disney Sea, which is Tomorrowland of Disney Sea. It's got that timeless aspect to it. So I feel the only reason I prefer Anaheim over Magic Kingdom is, at least when you walk into Anaheim, on your left, you've got Buzz Lightyear. You can maybe say, oh, it's set in space. To your right, you've got Star Tours. You can say, yeah, this is kind of futuristic, even though it's set a long time ago. When you walk into Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom, on your left, you have nothing, an abandoned building that is occasionally used for a Stitch meet and greet. And on your right, you have a comedy club. Ooh, the future. And then
a comedy club for monsters, which aren't even necessarily futuristic. So
the only things that Tomorrowland does better at Magic Kingdom is People Mover, Carousel of Progress.
Yeah.
For nostalgic reasons, though, not for this is great.
Yeah, I'd agree. Probably the best Tomorrowland that I've experienced is still Discoveryland at Paris. To be fair, I was very tired the day I went to Paris. I don't remember all too much of it. I was probably more excited about the fact that I was going and was more hyped up by that. But it is still, the timelessness of it is the best part. So I think maybe to just bring it back to review time for a bit with some of the pre-written questions, just so that we can get through all of those as we go forward. Yeah. So we touched on this yesterday, but Christopher Harper asked, how did review time first start? And yeah, so we discussed this in yesterday's video. It was at Nagashima Spa-Land. And probably to further elaborate, it did come out from more discussions as we were going through Japan. We were like, surely someone's been to these theme parks. Like, you can see all of the POVs and everything. But is there not someone who can just sit down and talk about them? But also, what we figured out is that when you're traveling and when I'm traveling, we're after very different things. So is there not a way that we can break this down so that we can look at different parts of the parks? Because you're interested in big thrill rides, but as we know on things like flying coasters and stuff like that, I don't really tolerate them all that well. So we wanted something like, I think review time honestly wouldn't be a thing if we were super close in what we like, because we would just be like, wow, that was amazing. Nagashima Spa-Land had so many thrill rides. Let's just talk about how good the thrill rides were. But because we have different experiences and different opinions, we were able to, you were like, wow, that was a great park. And I was like, yeah, it was all right. And that's where the discussion came from for us to essentially develop review time. Did you want to add?
I think the idea is, so we haven't really talked about the way that the reviewing system works, but we talked about that for months, and it's gone through so many iterations before it went live. And we're thinking of changing just one of the categories of staff over to operations at the moment, just because staff is really easy to get a good score. And I feel operations would be better if it's like a really good park, but they're only running one train operations on their biggest coaster, and it's making the wait times 3 hours when it should be 5 minutes, those sort of things. But I think the idea behind behind the way that we mark a park, especially, and it was on the bullet trains in Japan that we talked about this marking schedule that started as 5 stars before developing into the 10 different categories out of 10.
5 stars just made everyone angry.
Yeah. The idea is that you can say, okay, so I've got a family of kids with me, and for a lot of people who are reviewing or talking about theme parks, say they go to Cedar Point. Okay, well, all they're going to talk about is the thrill rides, the big coasters, stuff like that. But if you're a family and you're only going for the family rides and maybe the entertainment, is it worth it for you to go? Yeah. So that's why we've always said, between the two of us, the categories and the score of the category is way more important than the final score at the end. Yeah. If you're getting a 10 out of 10 for thrill rides and all you care about is thrill rides, then that's going to be one of the best parks in the world for you. But if you care about the themed experience, the idea, like, we're not coaster guys or amusement park guys as much as we're theme park guys. To get a really high score is saying you're a really good theme park. If you only get 60 out of 100, you can still be an amazing amusement park and a great day out for people who are only looking for specific things.
Yeah. And that's, I think, it also becomes more fair on the smaller parks, because Luna Park Sydney still got like 55. And I know that seems really small, but for the amount of things that it has, we broke it down and we're like, hey, these are the good things. This is what you get. And I felt that was a really fair way of representing it. Whereas if we were just talking about it, it becomes very easy for us, if we don't have that structure, to just talk about bad things. And I think it allows the negatives to shine and the positives to shine in a fair manner. So that's where I think that came out of. But I think the thing I always say is, like, I've got a sister with young children, and I'm like, would she enjoy Nagashima Spa-Land? No. So that's where the breakdown comes from.
That's a good question. Quick fire questions from the chat. This is a random one. How tall are you? If you've ever seen pictures of us,
I'm the short one.
I'm a little taller than Dom. Yeah.
I'm like Danny DeVito.
I'm 6'1", or 186 centimeters. Do you know your exact?
I think I'm 170 something. I'm 5'7", I think.
If you look at that picture that we posted on Instagram yesterday, I was like the one bending down, just so you get about the same.
The pictures are always me on my tippy toes and Luke's bending over.
Quickly just going through, people are talking about dive coasters are a good idea, but B&Ms are really expensive. That's agreed. And I may be wrong here. I think you can correct me in the chat, but I think it has something to do with B&Ms are only made in Europe, where Mac has a factory in China. Maybe?
Yeah, there's something about it where only some manufacturers have production houses in China. And actually, I think you might be on the opposite of that. I think it might be B&M. And feel free to correct us. But I think they have a factory in China, which they only export to certain countries. Lindsay also points out B&M have a factory near Cedar Point as well. So I guess we know what market they're trying to get into.
Which is because I don't think Cedar Point hasn't popped in. They popped in a dive coaster maybe 5 years ago. So that was probably a big, hey, you're going to save on shipping.
See, I think Mac probably wants to attack the Australian market, because there isn't necessarily all that much in Australia in terms of big thrill rides to compete with. Like, before DC Rivals, there was Superman. That was probably the biggest, most thrilling roller coaster in Australia. And that was
Intamin.
Intamin cable launch.
If you've done Accelerator at Knott's, same ride system, but chuck or even Top Thrill Dragster or stuff like that. Same ride system, but chuck a small dark ride section at the start.
Yeah, so Mac Rides, I think, were trying to attack this market so that all of the other bigger players are like, hey, I want one of those as well. And it worked, because now Dreamworld has a Mac coaster, and SeaWorld has a Mac coaster, and Movie World has a Mac coaster. So I'm sure if anyone else
big
pops...
coaster editions, all been Mac.
So...
Here's one from Tony Jane, but it can also go with a pre-sending question from Kathy King. So Tony says, do you have a favorite roller coaster in Australia? And Kathy says, what is your favorite roller coaster? So I'm sure whatever we answer here, we're going to rile somebody up. But I'll start because I'm just going to give a top three, no particular order. You can decide to do with it what you want. Top three, and one of them is an Australian coaster, which I may be showing a little bit of favoritism to, just because it's in Australia. But top three, no particular order. Maverick at Cedar Point. It's just really fun. Shows what you can do with a low-lying, low-to-the-ground coaster with some nice launches, some elements. It's just one of those rides I haven't really experienced anything else quite like it.
Yeah.
Also, DC Rivals Hypercoaster. It's in Australia. It's a really great ride. Every time I've ridden it, the back row ride that we've done, the two of us, is the most petrified, out of control experience I've ever had in my life on a coaster. And looking around, like, I've ridden X2, And I think Death Backwards Rivals is even more petrifying. I don't know why.
It's that whole idea, the way I explain it is when you're in an actual roller coaster, especially in the lift hill, you're sitting back in the seat and you're being pushed in. On Backwards Rival, as you're going up the lift hill, you're being pushed out. So all your body weight is just on the lift hill as you see the ground getting further and further away. It's absolutely horrifying.
And then rounding out my top 3, it's the only RMC I've done. So I'm sure if I do a bigger, better one, it will take the place of that. But it's Twisted Colossus over at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Yeah. How about yours?
For me,
in the world and Australia.
I've got 2. So in Australia, probably the most thrilling roller coaster I've ever ridden is DC Rivals. I really enjoy DC Rivals, but I'd still probably find myself going back to Superman Escape. Now, I haven't ridden anywhere as near as many coasters as Luke, so my opinion of these is going to be a bit skewed. But Superman Escape, I feel, is that launch. You can't get over that launch, whereas I find that DC Rivals is just sort of like a constant sort of woo, whereas Superman is like whoa, if that makes sense. And then personally, and this might annoy some people, one of my favorite attractions, or my favorite roller coaster, would have to be the original, or the 1990s, late 1990s version, with the soundtrack of Space Mountain, the one that was at Hong Kong Disneyland and Anaheim.
I think it's back in Anaheim. They got rid of hyperspace.
Yeah,
so you can ride it there, right? Well, eventually.
So I don't know. I have a special affinity with that ride. It's sort of what introduced me to theme parks and looking behind the scenes, because I guess where I started from with my enthusiastness was I rode Space Mountain, and I'm like, man, I want to know what that looks like with the lights on. So you do a bit of research and you find that out, and then you're like, oh, how do the effects work? What's the ride layout like? And it's a rabbit hole that you eventually just fall deep into, and you're on Disney. What was that website that was like hiddenmickeys.com or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
It was really basic.
That was one of the
and everyone could just submit their own facts. But all of the facts were from like 1994. So it was things like, oh, if you look up, there's a projection of a cookie. That's false. That never actually happened. But those sort of things.
Also, it was that thing where you're like, I'm so excited, I'm researching. And you get to the park, you just completely forget it all and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
But it was a good way to like bridge the gap.
It tied you over. That's what I like about doing a lot of this research, is that you can still feel like you're in the atmosphere of a theme park, just deep dive into some theme park content, listen to some soundtracks and all of that. When doing my Epcot video, it was like going back there, going through all of that footage and all of that, older historical footage as well. But yeah, those are my 2.
Yeah, I think there's never been a better time to be a theme park fan, because there's so much out there. Like, even with everything going on in the world, you couldn't possibly go back and watch all the content that's been made about theme parks, even in the last year.
Yeah.
So there's plenty to keep you going between. I think that answered a question BD Network also had, which is better, Big Thunder or Space Mountain? For you, it's obviously Space Mountain. For me, at the Magic Kingdom, I prefer Big Thunder. At everywhere else, I prefer Space Mountain.
Yeah. There's just a quick one from Thrill History that probably relates to roller coasters. Is there a ride you refuse to ride? I will always experience something once, but I hate flying coasters. I despise them. I'm a bit of a bigger dude, and they just don't mold well with my bod. So my big belly gets pushed on for the entire experience, and it's just uncomfortable. I had an awful experience on Flying Dinosaur and an awful experience on Acrobat at Nagashima Spa-Land. So do I really want to do them again? Yeah. Not really.
For me, there is one in Australia that I haven't ridden yet. And I had plans to ride it. I didn't ride it with you guys on the ReviewTyme trip because I had plans to ride it a couple of months later. And it's Tower of Terror. giant drop at
Oh.
Dreamworld.
I was like, you never did Tower of Terror?
No, I will go on a roller coaster as high as the giant drop. I just hate drop rides. I don't know why. It's like sitting up like this. Ugh, disgusting. My body hates it. Going over a drop and facing towards the ground at the exact same height. That's fine. I like it.
Maybe it's
and
the
I
seat.
yeah, I'd like built myself up. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it today. I went to the park. It was closed for the entire day for wind. And I was like, I'll probably never do it now. It took me forever to build myself up. 20 odd years since probably I first went. So maybe when I'm
I'll
40,
still say
something.
that the best thrill on the Gold Coast is still the giant drop. It's just nothing beats the adrenaline rush that you give yourself because of that ride. It is nothing more than up, quickly down. But you work yourself up so much, you're like, I'm gonna die. And so you just get to that point up the top where it slowly starts to stop. And you're like, this is dumb. I want off. And then your body's in that mindset of, but there is no way to get off. And you just sort of turn into petrified wood. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm gonna die. And then it drops, and that rush that you get in that drop, there's no roller coaster that can compare. It is phenomenal.
So this is a good question. It comes in from Tony. I think we probably would have the same answer for this. Which Disney park would you recommend for someone to visit as their first Disney park? And I think,
it depends where you are in the world, but I'd always lean back. So we as Australians, I'd always recommend for your first Disney park to do Hong Kong Disneyland. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It's a good Disney taster park. It doesn't have all of the experiences, but it doesn't have the crowds that come with the other ones. So you can go there and experience some of the staple Disney attractions whilst not battling, 1.5 hour to 2 hour waits. It's also quite relaxed. The atmosphere there is phenomenal. You still get the fireworks, you still get the parades, and you get the night parades. It's probably got the fullest in terms of entertainment offerings because it's got 2 shows as well, which I don't like, 2 full production shows, which I don't think any other parks have every
Animal
day.
Kingdom is probably the only other one.
Because I know
it
that
has festival as well as the best show on property, Finding Nemo the musical.
Yes. But it's just that thing where you can get all of Disneyland in that small package with small crowds.
And I think
if you push past that as an Australian, I would then recommend the Tokyo Disney Resort, but only if you're ready for it. Because if you're not ready for it, it will destroy you.
I think as well, same sort of thing. Hong Kong is, if you're not sure if you're going to like Disney, Hong Kong's perfect because you can go for a single day and get the whole park done satisfyingly. And it will give you an idea if you want to go for more. Sorry. I think I would almost go Hong Kong. If you really like it, go to Disneyland in Anaheim. Obviously, if you're in America, Disneyland's probably the easiest. Disney is the most... it's hard to explain, but Disneyland just has this magic that no other resort for me has. And I think it's that knowledge of the history and stuff like that. And then if you love Disneyland, maybe brave Tokyo, but make sure you go into it knowing what you're getting yourself into. Because we've seen people at that park just like, what is this? Like, there's a 2-hour line to get a gyoza dog. There's a 5-hour line to ride Toy Story, and the Fast Pass is sold out in 20 minutes.
Yeah, if you don't, I've seen vlogs of people who are like, we didn't look anything up because we didn't want to spoil it. And I'm like, oh no. And then at the end of the day, they're like, I hate this park. I've seen it happen a couple of times. If you're going to Tokyo, don't worry about being spoiled. You cannot spoil when you're walking through and you see Mount Prometheus for the first time. Even if you see a million pictures, that reveal is still phenomenal. But do your research, please.
Yeah. Look up. Don't
the other
look
thing
up
I just
but look up everything else you can.
The other thing I just top off as well is if you enjoy, or like if you love the Disney resort experience, staying at somewhere like Hong Kong Disneyland or Tokyo Disneyland, or that immersion in Disney, you know, you go to the Disney hotel and you catch the Disney bus to the Disneyland. Then if you want the ultimate resort experience, that's when you go to Walt Disney World. They're not necessarily the best parks, but it's the best Disney resort experience. If you want the best Disney parks, you go to Anaheim, in my opinion. Or, if you're a Westerner, I'd say Anaheim would probably be the best Disney parks, but in terms of the greatest would still be Tokyo Disney Sea. Tokyo Disneyland sort of falls about 10 points under Disney Sea for me. So I don't rate it
Disney World, but it's not like it's a good Magic Kingdom style park. But when you've got that next door, and it pains me the amount of people who are like, yeah, I went to Tokyo Disneyland. Did you go to Disney Sea? No, that's just an inferior version. And I'm like,
well, I think that comes from people being like, oh, well, if you go to Disneyland, no one just goes to DCA. Like, so we've got that idea in our heads already, that the second park is always worse?
Yeah, exactly. That the second park is not the park to do. Maybe Disney World's a little different because it has 4 for different reasons, but any resort that has 2, you know, DCA's weaker.
Yeah.
Disney Studios Paris is way weaker. So to be like, no, it's stronger. Probably people are like,
Yeah, Disneyland Paris, like the actual park, is phenomenal. Walt Disney Studios is a car park that they put some attractions on.
Just to fulfill that requirement. We got a comment here from Andrew Eastwood. I just thought it was cool. There's no questions. Love the Fox Studios Backlot Sydney video we did. It brought back memories for him as he was one of the performers on the Titanic experience. It was a great experience to die dozens of times a day. And going back to, there were some videos on Australian theme parks, whether we experienced them. I think Fox Studios Sydney is probably the Australian park I wish I got to experience the most, just because it's so different. Like, sure, I guess most of the other major parks I was lucky enough to experience. Like, I did do Wonderland, I did do Sega World, but it didn't look like a theme park. But stuff like the Titanic experience, and you know, I was lucky enough when I was researching for that video, I talked to one of the guys from Technofex in an interview who was the company who designed that attraction. And just to hear him talk about it, it sounded spectacular. So for you, Andrew, to be able to work on it every day, that would have been really cool.
Yeah. Like, I wish that I got to experience that park. I'm not sure whether I did or not. There are probably memories in the back part of my brain from... You know, if I was younger, maybe I didn't remember it. The only reason I really remember much stuff from Wonderland is because I went there literally a couple of weeks before it closed. Our school did this offering where it was like, oh, if you get a certain amount of points, you know, schools do the points things, you were able to go on a trip with the school, and that was to Wonderland. If I didn't get, like, I was a couple points under, and then I did something and I was just over. Like, they were like, you just cut in. If I didn't do that, I would have never gone to Wonderland. So I'm very glad to have that experience.
All right. I think we've covered most of the questions in the chat, so we'll move back over to the docs. If you do have any more, keep asking. We'll get back to them. But here's one from Gameplay Extreme plus Disney. One name there, Extreme with an X, so good name. Which unbuilt Disney attraction would you like to see in one of the parks? So we've done videos on plenty of unbuilt Disney attractions, unbuilt Disney parks. So it could be one of those, or it could be any of them out there. What about you? What do you think?
I can't remember my answer for this.
I can answer why you think if you want.
Okay, yeah.
So for me, it sounds cliche, I'm sure. So many people would say it, but Western River Expedition at the Magic Kingdom. Quick rundown if you're not sure. That was meant to be that park's version of Pirates of the Caribbean. It should have been where Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain are now. It was going to be essentially the Wild West version of Pirates of the Caribbean. So there was no pirates when that park opened. And what happened, it was meant to be this huge Mark Davis ride. if you can imagine pirates, but themed to the Wild West with all the same sort of sight gags, stuff like that. It was a boat ride inside a massive show building, massive warehouse. Problem was, people got to the park and had heard so much about Pirates of the Caribbean, they just expected Pirates of the Caribbean to also be at Disney World. So people were like, where's the pirates? Where's the pirates? And that's why Disney World now has an inferior version, because they essentially went, okay, here's your Pirates of the Caribbean. They build a cheap, quicker version just to get it in and keep people happy.
And
So
that probably
for me,
spurred the first version of, let's just take the blueprints and go, yeah, you got that right now.
yeah, especially for Disney World, they seem to always have the inferior. If there's two versions of a ride out there, Disney World always sadly seems to have the inferior one.
There were probably two. Actually, I'm just going to throw a blanket answer out there. Anything that Tony Baxter imagined.
Discovery Land,
yeah, Lucasport, all of those things. Like, he, in my opinion, he was probably one. Wait, did he design Lucasport, the glass facade and all that? Yeah, just double checking before everyone's like, what? Yeah, Discovery Bay is just, when you look at it, would have been a phenomenal experience. And I think it would have really transformed what the Disney parks were before Disney Sea, because Disney Sea allowed them to go, oh, we can take this immersion and we can really do something with it. And I think before that, they were sort of like, you know, you're somewhat in a land, but we want to keep you in that sort of like mindset that, you know, you're in a theme park. So let's make New Orleans Square, but you've got to make sure that it's not too immersive. You can still see out into the rest of the park. There's the Matterhorn. You're in New Orleans.
Yeah, the weenies.
But Discovery Bay was just going to be fully enclosed, fully immersive. All of the characters and all of that would really bring you into it. And I think that would have progressed Disney parks a lot quicker. But also the original idea for the Tower of Terror, I reckon, would have been cool. The idea that you're in a mine shaft.
Sorry. So that wasn't the original idea for Tower.
Oh.
Wasn't that that was the idea to bring it over to Disneyland, because they thought
that's right, yeah.
DCA was going to be so popular, they needed to put some big e-ticket attraction back into Disneyland.
That's right.
To drag the crowds back.
Then they had to go, no, Disneyland is still really popular, DCA isn't. Let's just take that idea and go, actually, just speaking of looking at the Lego in the background, the new Lego design with the Haunted Mansion and the drop tower looks really cool.
It's like a mix of Haunted Mansion and Tower of Terror.
Yeah, I was thinking that. The reason why I bring it up is because I reckon they probably approached Disney to be like, hey, can we do a Tower of Terror set? And I don't know, it may have fallen through, but just the way it's designed, it's too coincidental for it not to be. Who really compares a Haunted Mansion to a drop tower? That's my conspiracy
It's one of those rides that I'd be like, oh, this actually would have been like a cool, if it was in DCA in, you know, I think it could have, like in the, whatever that place that has the rapids is, whatever that land is. I've always said it.
The Grizzly Canyon or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the perfect place for Mystic Manor.
Yeah.
If you rethemed it to be the like roadside, kitschy, California sort of tourist trap. Slightly redo it, obviously, but that style of ride would be perfect for that section.
Just replace Lord Henry with a Nevada, you know, museum owner, and then replace Albert with a badger.
There you go, Disney. You can have that one. We'll give it to you.
We expect the check in the mail, Disney. So just quickly touching on some of the comments that have come through quickly. So Penny Stringer says, we didn't go to Disney Sea in 2009, mainly because we didn't know it existed. And that's the thing I hear from a lot of people, is that by the time they plan Disneyland, they don't actually know that there's another park. And I've heard from a lot, especially a couple of my friends who have been at Disneyland, seen the mountain and go, wow, that's a great attraction, go to walk to it, and they're like, wait, how do I get there? And then they look it up afterwards and they're like, that's a whole new park? So I feel...
think the other
you go, sorry.
So that resort if you're thinking of going, you haven't gone, don't underestimate it. Don't think you can do even just one day at Disneyland or one day at Disney Sea and be satisfied. Not because, if the parks are empty, yeah, you could probably get everything done, especially at Disney Sea. It doesn't have a ton, numbers-wise, of attractions, but they're just always so busy. If you try to stress yourself out and get it all done in one day, so I know when the two of us went, we did the 4-day ticket. So it's 1 day at one park, 1 day at the other, and then 2-day park hopper. Though park hopper isn't quite as easy as it is at, say, Disneyland, even though the parks are next to each other. The entrances are on the opposite sides. So it'd be like as if DCA entrance was at Cars Land and Disneyland's was at Toontown. And you have to go all the way between them. But yeah, give yourself time, because then we did 4. The time after I went, I did 5 days.
Yeah.
And that was even staying on property.
But you can only get 5 days if you stay on property, because you can only buy 4-day tickets.
We actually had to do. We bought 4 and then 1. But
yeah.
The park's cheap enough that it's still like, it was 7,400 yen, so $70 US or about 100 Australian dollars. When you then look at Disneyland, which on certain days for a 1-day, 1-park ticket is running close to 200 Australian dollars.
No, nowadays it's like 300 Australian dollars. The Australian dollar's down on the floor. Just quickly, just wanted to point out, would you do a review, Nathan Evans asks, would you do a review of Universal Studios Singapore in the future? I rode the Madagascar ride just before it closed for the Minions Mayhem to be built in its place. That has actually been on our cards for a while. The only problem is we need to figure out the value of going to Singapore. Just because it only really has one theme park, it's hard for us. Without the Malaysia Fox Studios park opening, we were hoping that what we could do mid this year, when it was expected to open, was to go to Singapore, do Universal Studios Singapore, then go over to Fox Studios Malaysia, cover that for the opening, and then come back home.
Legoland, I think, as well was.
Yeah, they've got Legoland, but they're all they're really spread out, so you need plenty of time. And for us to do 5 days,
to do 3 things.
Yeah, we could do 5 days in another country and get 5 reviews. So that's something that we always consider when doing our reviews. Is we try and think, well, firstly, are people going to watch it? So they need to have some sort of appeal. And then we need to think, okay, how much is it going to cost compared to how much are we going to get out of it? And then sometimes there's the I really want to go here factor. So just on that,
I think the other thing in regards to that is, we were talking about this Fox Park the other day, because we were looking at it and we're like, should we do a video about, what's going to be? There's just not enough out there. And then when we looked, that park was meant to open in 2016. And I think it was ultimately meant to open in the middle of this year, but who knows now. So if we can, it could be that thing where it's like, it may not even be a review time trip. It just could be that one of us go over there and just cover it for, because the thing that not necessarily people know is we don't all the reviews on the channel aren't necessarily trips that we've done together with the two of us. So some trips might have been you've done with your wife, some trips I've done with my girlfriend, and then we come back and edit those on the channel. So
I think the only review time mega trips that we've done have been the Gold Coast with the actual,
and I guess the first one as well. So Hong Kong Disneyland, Nagashima Spa Land, and then the Tokyo Disney parks.
Yeah,
that was the first trip before review time had even started, and that's still to this date the only international trip we've been lucky enough to do together, because this year was meant to be the big year. But
there was another one in here that I quickly wanted to answer, and we probably should look at speeding things up so we don't go massively over time, because we are at an hour. But Eware says, I never got to experience Wonderland or Sega World, too young. Any advice on longing for something I never got to have, and being stuck with the wild mouse as my roller coaster experience? So I think what he's getting at there is, there are people out
The
there.
only coaster in Sydney is
yeah,
Wild Mouse.
who are like theme park enthusiasts. They want to know more about parks. How can they get more out of them? For me, I've always found try and track down channels like Resort TV One, Theme Park Worldwide, who just go through theme parks and experience them. They're the sort of things you chuck it on in the background whilst you're doing something else. I'll usually do it whilst I'm building Lego or whilst I'm doing housework. You just watch these vlogs of, say, Theme Park Worldwide will go to Shanghai Disneyland and just record everything.
Yeah.
And I find that's the most satisfying for me, because you get that unscripted, unedited experience about a park and you can make your own opinions based off that. The thing I always say about our reviews is that at the end of the day, they are our reviews. So there is going to be some bias in that, and some people may have different opinions. So there are channels out there who will provide better experiences for providing a blanket experience instead of a condensed sort of review atmosphere. So
I think the other thing you might have been touching on is that idea of, I wish that I could have visited this. I wish that I could have done this. And I think we're at a, like, theme park and historian, like that sort of stuff is really at an all-time high thanks to places like YouTube. Like, if you 10 years ago had have said, oh, damn, I wish I could have gone to Sega World or Wonderland or something like that, you'd have to really dig through the archives or really dig through websites to find that bit of information that you can nowadays just jump on YouTube and type in Sega World. You can jump on YouTube and type in any theme park around the world that's closed. And it comes out in the comments a lot. Stuff like the recent video on Freedom Lane USA, so many of those comments are like, I visited this when I was 5 or 6 years old. Thank you so much for bringing these memories back.
Yeah.
And I think YouTube and history, and there's plenty of channels out there, allow people to relive their childhood, but also experience things that they don't get a chance to experience in ways that they wouldn't before. The one that I really recommend, there's like a Horizons POV that's been released recently, and it's pretty much in 1080p, as good as it's going to get without being able to ride the ride.
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't have been a thing. I think it's recently released. So even a year ago, you'd be watching this shaky VCR quality where someone's taken that and has upscaled it and made it completely watchable. So whilst it's tough to sadly say, there's so many things I was like, I wish I could have visited X, Y, and Z. Thankfully, there's ways to live out those places now again.
And as well for places like Sega World, you've got a lot of YouTube videos of people just walking around. Wonderland has wonderlandhistory.net. There's also a lot of Facebook groups where people will put, like there's a Wonderland History Facebook group, people just post up random bits and bobs. The other thing as well that you can do, if you have the game and you've got a computer that can run it, Planet Coaster, a lot of people will rebuild attractions. So someone's fully rebuilt the Bush Beast from Wonderland that you can just plop into a world and you can ride. So that's a really good way to sort of figure out how these attractions were made and, well, not how they were made, but how they run.
How they ran, yeah.
So that's what I'll do sometimes, is I'll just load up Planet Coaster and look up, say, Bush Beast or any other ride and just go boop, and you can ride it, essentially.
Quick one here from Jabantis. Are you guys based out of Sydney? Pretty close.
New South Wales, so.
Yeah.
That's, we're far away from...
That they could hear that's exactly where we're from our accents. I was really impressed. Like,
oh, wow.
I was like, are you guys from regional New South Wales on the East Coast? I can hear it in your voice. I was like, oh, okay.
Jeez.
And then one question from Rob for you. And that shirt's famous because I can see what you're wearing underneath. Is that the... That's the watermelon shirt as seen on TV when ReviewTyme was on Celebrity Name Game here in Australia.
Yeah, so I think at that point, geez, we only had 10,000, I think we were celebrating.
Yeah.
And that was a year ago now?
Yeah, probably.
It was August last year, I think it was.
Yeah.
Because it was around the same time that I was doing Beauty and the Beast. But I wore this shirt on there, and they made a point. It's like, hey, do you have, this is very loud. What else do you have to go with it? And I said, I have matching pants. And then on national television, I thought they'd cut it out, but I also made a joke. It's like, oh, and I have matching underpants. They kept it in. Of all of the things that they cut, they kept that in. We should. I do want to. Speaking on that, we've had an idea for a while, which is a secondary YouTube channel, which is essentially called something along the lines of ReviewTyme Unharnessed, which is less produced content where we can just pump out more stuff that is maybe not super relevant to the main ReviewTyme channel. And it would be stuff like our experiences in the parks. If you saw a lot of our footage from the 100th video, just to like make a little vlog special or little talking pieces like this, because I would like to talk about our experience on Celebrity Name Game. So if you're interested in something like that, be sure to let us know.
Cool. I think that we'll jump back to the pre-asked questions. This one is from Ray, Patreon of the channel. I think I saw it floating around in the chat before. So hey Ray, if you're out there, thanks for your support for all this time. It's more directed at me, so I'll try and give as quick answer as I can. When I got the gig, working for Disney, did I get worried it would tarnish the industry for me, and more importantly, the company's image? So it's an interesting question in that a lot of us want to work for theme parks. Like we have this idea, this grandiose idea, but I think that you need to go into it, if you are going to work for a theme park, with a realistic expectation. So I didn't go into Disney thinking, oh, it's going to be so magical, I'm going to get to see all this stuff. I went into Disney because I wanted to see how a theme park worked behind the scenes. I wanted to help make the magic for guests. And whilst there is things that, did surprise me a little bit, there's enough out there that you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. So I obviously still go to Disney parks all the time, so it didn't make, didn't devilize them or anything like that.
Yeah.
It kind of opened my eyes even more. I kind of appreciate theme parks more now because, when before it was like you'd appreciate theme parks in the way that the Imagineers designed them and how much that had a time and all that sort of thing. Now I appreciate theme parks down to each individual cast member who helps, make the magic to guests or stuff like that, because I know what it's like to be having a really bad day and still chucking on a smile after, the 100th guest has yelled at you for something that you can't control.
Yeah.
And I think that's given me that real appreciation for not just the high level, but every single person who goes into making a theme park special for every single guest who walks through that gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the same thing. I was really worried when I first started researching these topics quite in-depthly. I was worried that it would spoil theme parks for me. When you find out how a magic trick is done, you're suddenly less interested in the magic trick. I don't think that's the same thing for a theme park, mainly because you can only experience such a thing in a very limited setting. And in a way, knowing how it's done or preemptively knowing what's coming up is almost makes you more appreciative of the experience. It's very hard to get my attention, let's say that. So if I see something in a ride, I'm like, how is that done? It'll ruin my experience for the rest of the ride, because I'll just be like, how did they do that effect? So I'm different to Luke. Luke will not look up some experiences beforehand. I will, because then I know what to preempt, and I can prepare for that, essentially.
I think Jake said it best here in regards to what I was just talking about. The quote from Walt: "You can design and create, build the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make the dream a reality." So I believe that's on the casting door as well. So if you Magic Kingdom, Disneyland, on the left-hand side of Main Street, there's a casting door. It's Walt's window as well, and it's talking about that. And it's essentially, how people have windows on Main Street. That is the window for every single person who's ever worked in the parks.
Well, I think edging on now an hour and 15 minutes that we should do some snappy, quick-fire questions.
Yeah. I'm just going through some of these we've kind of touched on before. But quick one here from Kristen, Instagram follower, showed up to the meet. She's also in the chat. So hello to you. Quick one. Favorite video you've ever made and which took the longest time to make?
Oh, okay. So the favorite video I've ever made, I absolutely love Why Theme Parks. That was me taking my heart and putting it into a video. But beyond that, probably the video which I felt was the most satisfying to make was What the Heck is Epcot? Because I've had a lot of people who are like, this explains so much about what Epcot is. Because I know even my wife, she was like, I didn't get it. She went to Epcot. She's like, I didn't get the experience. And I made that video pretty much specifically for her. And then afterwards she was like, oh, I get it now. It makes a lot more sense. And I think it has gotten a bit wibbly wobbly over time. And that's why Epcot is so problematic as it is. The other one, the hardest video to make, is actually on the back of the hoodie. I'm not sure if you can see it.
Yeah, we can.
But it's Disney Wharf. So Disney Wharf, from, I guess, conception of the idea to the actual release of the video, took about 6 months. We first came across a PDF which outlined the Disney Wharf project. And that, we were looking at that, and it's like 40-something pages. Yeah. And it's not like 40-something pages of drawings, it's 40 pages of writing in a size 11 font. So we went through that, and we were looking at it, and we didn't really have an idea of how it would all work until we went to White Bay one day, and we walked around the area. So there are lots of parks and that, and you can see, if you look on it on Google Maps, you can see the White Bay area and how this would all fit. And that made it all work. So we did some on-site recording at White Bay so that we could sort of get an idea as to how everything would match up with the concept design. And then from there, it was just trying to fit 40 pages worth of information that was all relevant into a video, and I think it ended up being about 25 minutes. But the current standard is like a page is essentially, I'd say, about 3 minutes worth of voiceover.
Yeah, a page of scripting, yeah.
So if we went with 40 pages, it would be a very long time. So it was just trying to condense it, figure out what was relevant, and figure out what worked. I don't know, it was just, Disney Wharf was also a very good experience to work on.
Yeah, I think for me, my answer for the two is the same. I touched on it briefly before, but Fox Studios at Sydney, not necessarily because it had a really long lead time, but the most hours spent in a single week. So I made this video when you were overseas on your honeymoon, and I made a number of videos in a row. So I had a week to make each video, and I was like, this will be easy. I reckon I spent 70 maybe hours in that week on that video, because I don't know, it doesn't necessarily come across because I don't reference it, but I actually went back, I interviewed people who designed the park, I interviewed I have a 2-hour interview, like I was talking about, of the CEO of Technifex talking about Titanic, the experience.
Yeah. And
I may have edited that 2 hours down into a couple of choice quotes in the video. So I did tons, and because we did the on-location filming for that, a couple of months. So what people don't know, that on location where I'm there talking about the park, the only part of that video I had scripted at that point was the part that I say, because we didn't know where it was going to go from there. And because of that, all that extra experience, it's something close to us. It's kind of an abandoned theme park you could still go down to and look at here when you go to Sydney. That kind of made it for me. It was also one of our first videos that kind of took off a little bit, so that was exciting. So I think for me, that's probably my favorite, and the longest it took in the shortest amount of time.
Oh yeah.
Andrea Eastwood here. Any merchandise available? Yeah. So the hoodie.
This hoodie isn't available anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah,
so the zip hoodie. This was from. So we had a store that was shop.reviewtyme.com. And it cost us quite a bit to run it, and no one bought anything. So it had this zip up hoodie on it. I absolutely love the the hoodie, but it's now gone. We've got one that's attached to the YouTube channel, so if you look under any of our videos, it shows some shirts and things like that.
If you scroll down in the description at the moment, so there is a version of that hoodie, but it's a hoodie, not a zip up. There's also just some straight up logo shirts, and one of my favorites is it's not a loud review time shirt, but I think would be appreciated by most people, are probably theme park fans. It's the "If found, please return to nearest theme park" shirt.
I still need to buy that.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to final 2 questions. So last couple of chances if you want anything to ask in the comments. You can, if you ever do comment on a video or send us a message, Facebook, Instagram, we'll get back to you. Usually if you have a question, we try to read. We definitely read every single comment, every single thing. And then a lot of the time we'll jump in with our responses, stuff like that. It is just the 2 of us, so please feel free to get in touch. You don't have to go through some social media manager or some, HR person. It is just the 2. So second last question. I might need to grab a prop for this, so I'll let you answer first. Your favorite piece of theme park merch and memorabilia?
See, my favorite piece of theme park merch or memorabilia, I really like things that you can wear. I guess in a sense, it's almost like announcing where you are, and it's also a good conversation starter. Announcing where you've been. So if you've got like a really good shirt, you can essentially be like, hey, look, I've been to Disneyland, just by showing it. And then people can be like, I've been to Disneyland, you can talk about it. Oh no, my dog's just come into the room.
The mascot,
and yes, so that's why I really like the shirt. What about your favorite merchandise?
Yeah. So quickly, just talking about merch. This polo, wherever it is, the ReviewTyme polo, there's only 2 in the world. We both own them. Those are our official work shirts when we're in parks and stuff.
Yeah, so they're not available, unfortunately.
Yeah, they've never been available. So they're not defunct, they've just never been available. So for my 2, I've got 2. 1 piece of merch, 1 piece of memorabilia. I think this might be back to front because my camera's flipped. But Main Street USA here, we've got the Shadow Box. So it's a 3D piece of art by David Avanzino. I just love it because I used to work on Main Street USA. Oh, hey, Norman. I used to work on Main Street USA. So this holds a really close part of my heart. It's, as you saw, it's behind me in my office space where I work on all my videos. As for my favorite piece of theme park memorabilia, it's weird because it doesn't look like much, but this tiny little jar of dirt here, this is actually my favorite piece of theme park memorabilia because that's dirt from the groundbreaking of Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I acquired this through normal means, of course, and that's sits next to me on my desk just as a cool piece of bit of history. Quick one here as well. So Charlie says another meetup needs to happen. Shame them
Definitely.
On the other side of the globe. Maybe if we go to Orlando the 50th or something next year, we might do a meetup there because we seem to have most of our fans in the US. So
yeah, we've been thinking about like toying with the idea that when we go to a park to have a special event like after hours. So essentially have people meet up and we could do like a live Q&A or a live sort of show. My dog is now barking at me, so I'm going to quickly pick him up again because he's very needy.
We're definitely looking at the numbers. Most of our fans are US based, so I'm sure when we do a US trip, we might pop the feelers out there. 2 questions quickly from Liam Prattley. Have you been to Rainbow's Edge in Auckland? I haven't. You have.
I have.
I believe.
I went there in about 2008. So that's my experience with Rainbow's End. It's a pretty decent park, but it's very small. And sorry, I have to hold him, otherwise he will bark. So if you're wondering why I'm holding my dog now, it's just to stop him from barking, which means we should probably wrap up soon.
Yeah, we've got one more in the comments, and then we've left a cool question for last, I think. The question is, where did it go? Oh no, it scrolled down. What is our favorite theme park YouTuber apart from us, obviously? I'll quickly answer. Depending on what it is, history, that sort of stuff, I enjoy Yesterworld and obviously all the classic Yesterworld, Defunctland. As for theme park YouTuber, we talked about him before. The most wholesome, down-to-earth guy. I'd love to, if we go to Europe or something, love to make videos, collabs with him, is Theme Park Worldwide, Sean from Theme Park Worldwide. Just a really genuine guy. I saw like a really heartfelt post on his Instagram earlier about not being able to see his partner for 8 weeks because of the lockdown. He just seems like a really nice, down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
And what you were saying, the perfect content, if you haven't been to a park or you just want something to put on to keep you company, essentially. Is it yours, I'm guessing, a similar answers?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the trackers as well. So Tim Tracker, when he's at the parks, I've been watching them for years, so they've definitely grown with their channel over the years. But whenever they do stuff in like the Disney Cruise Lines doing things for the first time, it's a great way to experience those. But yeah, Theme Park Worldwide as well he's just great to chuck on in the background.
Yeah.
And he does this great thing where he will just walk around and not really make it all about him. He makes it about the theme parks, which something that does you see it in a lot of channels. Sometimes YouTubers will grow and the content will become less about what they originally started on and more about them. So that's something that we're very aware of growing with YouTube and growing with ReviewTyme, that we don't want to make it all about us. We want to keep it with the content.
Allow the park to shine.
Something as well, I'm a big fan of Justin Scard, just because he's very down to earth and he's got a good motto.
I think, Ray just said Adam the Woo and Random Land, which is Justin Scard. So yeah, Adam the Woo, he's gone through this like whole experience on YouTube and he's been enjoyable to watch the whole way. And I think that'll take us to our lucky last question. I'm seeing no more in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's joined in through. It comes in from Jake, one of the longest term fans of the channel, a Patreon supporter from the very beginning. I think I saw him somewhere in the chat. To wrap things up, Dom, what is your dream theme park job?
Ooh. So it's probably a blanket answer, but I think I don't think I'd ever get to a point where I'd be able to be one of the front runner Imagineers. Someone like Joe Road or something like that, Tony Baxter, that'd be a very hard experience to get. The thing I think that I would want to be would be one of the people who, when they make the concept, you're the person who figures out how we're actually going to make that concept a reality. So working with technology and working with designs to essentially create those amazing concepts. I was talking to an Imagineer at Hong Kong Disneyland who pretty much said, if you've got a talent and you can prove yourself, Disney can use you, whether you're a photographer, whether you're an artist, whether you're into graphic design or you're into 3D art. Disney can utilize you in a way if you can prove to them that you've got the skills and got what it takes. So I think I'd love to do something with video, also photography. That'd be amazing. But even just something where you're facing the audience and the crowd, something where you can interact with the guests and make them essentially just make those magical experiences. And I think in a way we've done that through ReviewTyme because we can't do it in a park. And if anyone asks, yes, Norman is a bit chonky. And I know there might be some people who are like, your dog's overweight. Yes, we adopted him like this. So he is on a diet.
Just quickly I think we're very similar. I'd obviously love just same sort of thing, front-facing guest, day manager, something like that in a park, like operations manager, that sort of thing. Being able to make that direct connection with the guests still would be something that I'd love. I wouldn't want to move higher than you can still have day-to-day interaction with the guest if I was on that side. And then same sort of thing. I'd love to be, like a show concept designer or something like that at Imagineering. I think anyone who likes theme parks has to say that their dream job's somewhere in Imagineering, right? I think it's the law. But that's going to wrap things up, I think, for us here, the very first ReviewTyme live stream. Thank you to everyone who has joined in. If you do have any further questions, as I was saying before, you can always get in touch with us. If you have any questions about the videos, content, or just about us, please do. Huge thank you to, 25,000+ people who've subscribed.
Yeah.
Millions of people who've watched the content. A special shout out to all of our Patreons over at patreon.com/ReviewTyme. We've grabbed a few more of those in the last few days. Appreciate every single one of you. Hopefully in the near future, we might be able to see some of you in a theme park sometime soon. But until then, ReviewTyme will still be here to help you get through the quarantine wherever you are in the world. Anything to wrap up, Dom?
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's joined today. This has been an amazing experience, and I think I had an opportunity to sort of voice how great this has been within my video this week. Also, say bye, Norman. Norman says bye, he's been barking at me. I'm just going to quickly put him down on the bed. So now he's nice and comfortable, and then we'll wrap up the stream. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you all. He's barking at me.
Oh, there he is.
We'll see you all next time.
Later today, we'll see you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
See you guys.